Good evening, I'm Nima Rajan, and this is Forum Daily for Monday, June 26th. We begin tonight's newscast with an update on the wildfires that continue to burn across Canada. Smoky, dangerous air set over parts of western Quebec and eastern Ontario on Sunday as the number of forest fires burning across Canada rose again. We begin tonight's newscast with a major shakeup in the Canadian media market. Post Media Network Canada says it plans to merge with North Star Capital, the owner of Metroland Media Group and the Toronto Star. And tonight, it's day 11 of the BC port workers' strike. And maritime employers say that the impact of the walkout is making waves internationally. Good evening, I'm Nima Rajan, and this is Forum Daily for Thursday, July 13th. And tonight, we begin with a shocking revelation around the forceful sterilization of Indigenous women decades after the practice was thought to be stopped. Earlier this week, we covered a disturbing story originally broken by the Associated Press. It involved a 2019 case in which a doctor in Canada was suspended for forcibly sterilizing an Indigenous woman. After speaking to the journalist who broke that story, we felt that it was necessary to continue to ask the very important question, how is this still happening in Canada? Shocking indeed, sir. Now, unfortunately, this isn't the only case of forced sterilization that you're involved in. So what can you tell us about these multiple class actions around this in Canada and the dates of these sterilizations? Is this 2019 case the most recent we could look at?
It's the most recent that I have any formal knowledge of.
The executive director of a women's center in Toronto is sounding the alarm on what she says is the sex trafficking of international girl students in Canada. Sundar Singh from the Elspeth Hayworth Centre for Women says Indian international students in Brampton and the GTA are being targeted by pimps and drug dealers. So can you walk us through how an international student can be brought into the complex sex trade in Canada, particularly Indian girls, which tend to come from largely conservative backgrounds? How are they targeted and lured into this trade? If we go back to the attack on Saturday, one of the questions that I keep coming across is how Hamas was able to launch this massive attack on Israel on Saturday without any detection from Israel's sophisticated Iron Dome defense system. What are your thoughts on this? Unfortunate, but understandable, Mr. Zivo. Now, we know the Russian military claims that they are not targeting civilians, but based on what you've seen on the ground, is this accurate?
Absolutely not.
And then to the Ukraine, and now coordinating evacuation efforts in the Sudan.
And I really want to touch on, I apologize for cutting in there, just about 2 minutes. I definitely want to touch on the recent developments in Khartoum. We've heard from the UN that a national health lab in Khartoum has been seized by one of these warring sides. There's concerns around a biohazard risk. There are polio, measles, and cholera isolates in this lab. What do we know so far about the developments around this? So is this controversial tradition fabricated? Joining us now to talk more on this is Dr. Peter Lee himself. Dr. Lee, welcome to Forum Daily.
Good to be here.
So as we mentioned, this controversial festival has long been thought to be a cultural tradition, and those who are in favor of it often say, what's the difference between a chicken's life and a dog's life? But it's interesting that you point to research that highlights that dog meat or cat meat is not a traditional part of Chinese diets. So can you tell our viewers a little bit more about this? What are the facts when it comes to this? Now, Ms. Chow maintained her lead in popularity among voters, even amid a lot of pushback. We had Doug Ford's support of Mark Saunders and John Tory's push for Anna Bailau. What was it about Ms. Chow's campaign that really stood strong amid all of this pushback? Definitely some considerations there, sir. Now, you highlighted this a little earlier in the interview, but let's talk about it a little bit more. So some may not know that a visa does not guarantee you admission into a country. It just permits one to present themselves at a port of entry to seek admission. So could Canadians potentially be turned away from India now or in the future?
Yeah, I think that's a very distinct possibility.
All right, Dr. Shaw. Well, I want to go back to what you said about today's announcement. We're going to be giving more authority to the Competition Bureau if this bill were to be passed. What exactly would that look like? All right, Dr. Lanner. Now, meanwhile, in the U.S., we are seeing officials desperately trying to raise the country's debt ceiling. Some saying that the likeliness of the U.S. defaulting before the June 1st deadline is quite high. So how do you see this potentially impacting Canada and, in turn, household debt levels? So what does the future of the King dollar look like, and what does it mean for Canada? Joining us now to unpack this further is Mr. Peter Earle, an economist at the American Institute for Economic Research and a former Wall Street trader. Mr. Earle, thank you for your time today.
Thanks for having me.
Now, there seems to be a growing shift toward using other currencies for global trade deals, and not only by rivals Russia and China, but smaller nations are also taking part. So, what is really driving this push toward de-dollarization? Definitely, Dr. Just about a minute left here, but we often hear that it's normal to experience certain pains in our body as women, and maybe we require just some painkillers. But how can a woman effectively determine when it's time to go to a doctor?
All right, so the best advice I can give here is, it's 2023 and you should not be living in pain. If you're in pain and if you think it's normal, even if you do, see your doctor.
Now, being honest, I'm no stranger to melatonin gummies, Dr. Rout, but looking at the study, how is it possible and legal for companies to mislabel melatonin quantities in their products?
How indeed is an excellent question.
Well, joining us now to discuss these TikTok bans is Brendan Caldwell, director of Caldwell Securities Limited. Brendan, welcome back to Forum Daily. Oh, there we are, practicing our TikTok dances. Oh, you're a TikTok star,
I am
Brendan.
ready. I am ready for this, Nima. I'm all in.
I could tell, Brendan. Now, can you give us a bit of a background into why governments are banning, including Canada's and the U.S., why these governments are banning TikTok from government-issued devices? Well, a Chicago woman who made her first skydiving jump when she was 100 is hoping to land the Guinness World Record for the oldest skydiver. After making a tandem jump on Monday, 104-year-old Dorothy Hoffner told a cheering crowd that age was just a number. When she made her first skydive at 100, Ms. Hoffner had to be pushed out of the plane. But yesterday, she insisted on leading the jump, or working to capture the otter and put her in a new home. Well, I guess you could call it Grand Theft Otter. All right, take care, Canada. We'll see you next time on Forum Daily. All right, I'm Nima Rajan, and that'll do it for your look at national and international news for today. Remember, for more news on demand, you could always visit our website or follow us on social media. Take care, Canada. We'll see you next time.